Formula 1 returns to Europe and we begin with the Dutch Grand Prix, but unfortunately things are not looking so rosy within the paddock as tensions are beginning to rise quite significantly between the FIA and Formula 1. Now, for anybody that is not aware, the FIA is the governing body for Formula 1, laying out all of the rules and the regulations and basically being the people that the other people in the paddock don't like or like to just complain to about other teams and other drivers. However, as of late, they seem to be bridging a gap between themselves and Formula 1 and it's not looking good. Sources claim that people inside the paddock are done with the FIA over many disputes that have been going on behind the scenes. 8 drivers in total have been rumoured to have walked out of the latest driver briefing after major issues with themselves and the FIA to discuss about Formula 1 were not addressed. Now, what those issues were, we're not 100% sure as of yet, as of course these driver briefings always stay private between the drivers and the FIA. But it is quite clear that there is problems between them and Formula 1 and it's not looking to get any better. Taking a look at the race news now, and there was a bit of a shock actually heading into this race weekend, and it was that Red Bull topped the timesheet in practice and looked extremely competitive, not only on the short runs, hence why they were top of the timesheet, but also on the long runs as well, and this certainly raised a few eyebrows within the paddock, and there could potentially be a reason why. Heading into this race weekend, a lot of teams brought big upgrades to their cars for this weekend. Now, of course, throughout the first 6 races of the season, all being flyaways, there have been these marginal upgrades here and there being put onto the cars in general, but it was clear to see that heading into this weekend at the Dutch Grand Prix, the first European round, there were some big upgrades put on by a lot of the teams onto their cars, and Red Bull, I presume, have been one of those that have seemed to have got their upgrades working better than others, giving them an advantage heading into the weekend. But what may derail their advantage heading into the weekend is the weather. There is rain due on Sunday during race day. The biggest question though that the teams are not quite sure of yet is whether the rain is going to turn up during the race or, as a lot of people are forecasting at the moment, just after the race. Well, let's go and find out then. It's time for the race and also qualifying for the Dutch Grand Prix. Yo, what's going on guys, it is Foxydude here, welcome back to a brand new video and another episode of the F1 Journey. If you guys are new around here and you do enjoy the videos that you do see, well, feel free to drop them a like, and if you are new and you have not yet subscribed to the channel, by all means do so, because it'll help me potentially grow. Anyway, let's get straight into the race weekend then. It is the Dutch Grand Prix and Formula 1 returns to Europe. Of course, we have done the Australian and Asian leg, and we have also done the Middle Eastern leg, and that's not the best way to start our European leg with a spin there, heading out to the last corner, and unfortunately damaged front wing, but we're going to get ourselves back on track again. No, we're not going to get back on track because we've just been ploughed into by the side there of Valtteri Bottas. Bottas is out of the session. We're now unfortunately suffering damage. We've also got a 5-place grid penalty, and it gets worse because Reese is involved in the crash as well, and so is Sam. 2 of our main title rivals are out of qualifying here as both Sam and Reese take their crashes with Valtteri Bottas' car still to the side of the road. There was a yellow flag there, but unfortunately he was still in the middle of the circuit, and for them, they're out of qualifying, and that is a massive problem for our 2 title rivals in this championship so far. But for us though, we managed to get away with it, even though we were the ones that, well, effectively caused all of that. And as you can see here, we're on for our 1 lap here in this session. We've got 1 flying lap here. We've got no banker to work from. Also, as I nearly choke on my own saliva there, that's really, really impressive. Very well done. We also don't have a banker to go by, and we've got a 5-place grid penalty coming our way for the collision with Valtteri Bottas after he went into the side of us there after all of that. Now, as we go through in towards the chicane here, we're about half a second up on the Gasly's time there in the top. Again, I keep reminding, but I have to. There is no names mod, so the qualifying doesn't seem to like to hide the HUD. But as we go round through the final corner now, where is this going to put us in terms of track position? We cross the line to go P5. So here we are then on the grid for the start of the Dutch Grand Prix, and it's going to be a one-stop race with a threat of rain coming on later in the Grand Prix. But we started in P5, the 5-place grid penalty puts us to P10, so what can we do from 10th on the grid? Well, let's find out, because the race is underway then for the start of the Dutch Grand Prix. Not a great start from us, a lot of wheel spin off the line there, and that allows the Audi there of Charles Leclerc to come through, but we're going to cover that off versus Charles Leclerc into the first corner, and that is job done versus Leclerc. We stay in P10 then as things stand, making our way through into turn 2, and then swooping right around the outside here of turn 3. This is where you can get a great opportunity on the power there to just try and get a couple of cars, but for us it's absolutely pointless because the Jaguar there, I think that was Callum Eilert, managed to stay in front of us there, heading in towards the end of the first sector. Now in towards the middle sector, you can see we're already struggling just a little bit to adapt ourselves to a higher fuel load, and obviously the medium compound tyres versus ringing it around this track with the soft tyres and no fuel and maximum power in the car. So we're struggling a little bit now, but we just need to make sure we get ourselves dialed in as we now go towards the end now of the middle sector here. Leclerc just looking very close behind us now as we go in towards this middle sector. Any concertina effects going on, they're indeed doing that, and now we're going to go right around the outside there of the Jaguar of George, I think it was actually George Russell, not Callum Eilert, and that was an impressive overtake from us there, and that's actually unsettled what I think is Russell, and from that we can now just press onwards and get on with this Grand Prix. As we cross the start finish line, Lewis Hamilton, our teammate, leads the Dutch Grand Prix. Meanwhile, we're settling down in P9, and of course our two title rivals Sam and Reese are a lot further down than that. As we go through now in towards turn 3 here, and we get a great run through towards turn 3 here. Pato O'Ward now under a little bit of pressure here now as we make our way down the straight here, using up the battery to try and make this move on the McLaren early in this Grand Prix and make 2 overtakes in the span of just a couple of corners, and we do just that. Down the inside there of Pato O'Ward, and we're just going to shove ourselves a little bit wider there and just allow ourselves a better line through there, and job done on Pato O'Ward. Lovely overtake though, very intuitive there going on the high line of turn 3. Let's go and have a look at the race start though, see what happened further down the grid after we have a look at ourselves, obviously, as we recap. So like I said, it wasn't a great start from us, a lot of wheel spin, and Leclerc was actually pretty much ahead of us at this point, but we were able to get a better run through there, and from that point onwards, we were then howling with the Jaguars as we make our way around turn 3 there, and it was actually George Russell that we were competing with earlier, not Callum Eilert. This is on board with Sam then. Of course, Sam's starting at the back of the field here, but crucially, he's got a different way here. He's on the soft compound tyres as we make our way down in towards turn 1. So whether the softs are actually going to be a viable race strategy for him, it's another matter. But if he needs to get overtakes done, he's got to use maybe the softer tyres, but he may be forcing himself into a 2-stop strategy. But is that the way to go? We'll find out a little bit later on, but so far, so good. Nice clean start from Sam. And this is on board with Reese now. Now, Reese going the opposite way to what Sam is doing. He's on the medium tyres now as they make their way down towards turn 1, and here it almost was a very good start from him, but he actually gets boxed in, unlike Sam, who of course manages to make his way through, and then for Valtteri Bottas, he's trying to get in on the act here, and he will eventually have the high line, but it doesn't quite work here. But lap 3 of the Grand Prix now is on board here with Colton Herta and Sam now as they make their way down the straight. I tell a lie, it's actually Theo Porcher, I'm pretty sure it is, down in towards turn 1 here. And I've completely forgot to mention in all of this, you can see that McLaren sporting a new livery heading into this race weekend and for the rest of the F1 Journey season. Just in case you weren't aware, obviously with the McLaren now having the special Asian Grand Prix livery that they used in Singapore and Japan in real life into the game, I've gone ahead and exported that file out, and I've obviously modified it to work with the livery that I had previously, which is why you're now seeing a brand new McLaren with a couple of new sponsors and a couple of cheeky little detail. Cheeky little thing that happened there was a nice overtake around the outside of Callum Eilert into the chicane there, and that puts us up into 7th place now in this Grand Prix. This is the battle for the lead of the Grand Prix. So Hamilton currently leads this race here, but a surprise man that got himself onto the front row here for the Dutch Grand Prix was Stoffel Van Dorn. He had a great qualifying session. In fact, both Red Bulls had a great qualifying session, and for Van Dorn, he's in the lead now of the Dutch Grand Prix, but crucially, he's also gone a different way on race strategy. He's on the soft compound tyres. Well, there's us going way off the circuit and all of that, but yeah, he's gone a different way and gone onto the soft compound tyres. So he's going aggressive here, and he's really putting the pressure now on Lewis Hamilton, as you see the two Ferraris battling with each other. A Piastri passing Norris, whilst Mael Gatto was having a couple of issues during this segment of the Grand Prix, which is why I see a couple of little jump cuts here and there, but nothing I can really do about that. What we can do, though, is see Lando Norris here breeze straight back past Piastri. So despite Piastri making the overtake in the 1 DRS zone, as we literally, I think we actually made contact there with the rear of Piastri. In fact, we did do so, which is a little bit of a shame there, and you can see that the tip of my nose cone disappears. I really hate that, because I always tend to bump into a car, not take damage in terms of the MFD, but then I lose that bit of my nose cone. I don't realise till the race is over, and it just looks ugly. But what's going to get ugly for Piastri is an overtake that we're going to make on him. Not quite, no. He actually has a bit more straight line speed in the Ferrari, and on that occasion, no overtake done. We're sitting behind him for a little bit longer, but we don't want to sit behind him for too long, because we've got Pato O'Ward and Charles Leclerc and also Callum Ilott that are involved in the mix here. So we want to get past him as quick as possible, and that's one way to do it. Take the high line to get past Oscar Piastri, but Piastri also locked up in all of that. But crucially, we were going to take the high line anyway on Piastri to try and set ourselves up for a switchback heading into this portion of the circuit, but I didn't actually need to because I was in a fine position as well. On board here with Sam now, who's been making some good progress in this Grand Prix, but now all of a sudden here, he finds himself in a massive DRS train, and he's going to be in a lot of problems here. One of the Jaguars there going super wide there on the exit and costing himself a lot of time. That's a bit of a shame actually, because that Jaguar was way up the grid. Both Jaguars started in the top 10, and now all of a sudden he finds himself near the back there. But Sam, somehow, despite going or being absolutely hounded by everyone that's got DRS, well, he stayed ahead, which is crucial. There is Reese, not quite making the progress as what Sam's made, but Reese is certainly playing the long game here, as we now see what looks like Colton Herta trying to attack Callum Ilott. So Ilott was the one that's just been dropping down the order like a stone going into the water. Lewis Hamilton now with some DRS here, trying to battle with Stoffel Van Dorn now in towards the first corner as they go now. Hamilton just gets a little bit of wheel spin on the exit there. Van Dorn holds his position in the lead of the Dutch Grand Prix, but Hamilton is certainly hounding him, and those soft compound tyres, they're not going to go that much longer. So if Van Dorn's really going to do anything in this Grand Prix, if he's going to be doing a 2-stop race, he really needs to find a way now to be building this advantage, not having to battle with Hamilton constantly, because this is just hurting his race rather than making it any better. As we see there in the background, Carlos Sainz running in 3rd place, his teammate for Van Dorn, Sergio Perez, running in P4, and then it is I think it's Lando Norris in P5, but we go back again here, 3rd time lucky maybe for Lewis Hamilton. A little bit more battery definitely being used there for the Mercedes. Van Dorn will try and go around the outside to defend the position, but it's no good. Lewis Hamilton makes a move on the inside there, and that is job done. Lap 11 of the Grand Prix now. We've caught up to the back here of Sergio Perez. Now I didn't see the clip where the Ferrari of I believe it's Oscar Piastri actually passed Sergio Perez, but he has done. Oh, it's Lando Norris. I'm genuine. No, it is Lando Norris. I take it back. I'm really bad at remembering which driver's which. But as you can see, oh, a little bit of contact there between ourselves and Sergio Perez. But in the place where we seem to be making all of our overtakes at the moment, which is around the outside into the chicane, that's exactly what we do on Sergio Perez, and that is the overtake done. And now we can press onwards after Lando Norris and also Carlos Sainz. I nearly said Oscar Piastri again here on board now with Lando Norris, as we're cutting straight from ourselves here to the Ferrari. Going to go down the inside here of Sainz into turn 1. Sainz has got the better line theoretically around the outside of turn 1, because then he can cut the line off into turn 2, and he's done just that there. Job done for Carlos Sainz. He stays where he is for now, which is in P3. But lap 13 of the Grand Prix, and we fancy a look at these two drivers for positions there. A little bit of a slide from Lando Norris, and that's going to give us an opening here to potentially go for a move here on the Ferrari as we make our way down and towards the outside here of the chicane. You thought I was going to go for the move around the outside of the initial section of the chicane. Not quite. We switched back there on Lando Norris. Get a great run out of here. Norris has got more straight line speed, or he's using more battery anyway through all there, but the overtake is done, but it's not fully done, because now all of a sudden we find ourselves on the back straight here. We've got DRS, Norris has got DRS, but we're crucially, Norris is a lot closer to me than I am to Carlos Sainz, and unfortunately for Norris, there's not enough straight line left for him to go for an overtake. Fortunately for me, the corner came a lot sooner, and we can get on with our race. On board here with Reese now, who's caught himself up on the back of Colton Herta, I believe this is now. And he's got DRS here down the straight now. He's going to have DRS on the BMW as well. Into turn 1 of Nick de Vries, this is going to be now. This will be really close for Reese now heading in towards turn 1. Both him and Herta have just got rid of de Vries, and I think Herta is going to keep this one versus Reese now as they go round turn 3 here. This is going to get really close now between the pair of them. And for Colton Herta, he'll say, thank you very much. I will defend my position and then take 2. Unfortunately for Nick de Vries, though, that didn't turn out the way he probably would have wanted as we go back on board now with ourselves here, pressing onwards in our race now, fighting for third place here versus Carlos Sainz. Make a huge lunge there into turn 1, going a little bit wide there, but we actually use that to our advantage and get in front of Carlos Sainz now into third place in the Dutch Grand Prix, and that is a lovely overtake from ourselves versus Carlos Sainz. A really strange move, actually. That was a heavy lift and coast overtake there as we now make our way down the start-finish straight, and we're coming into the pits here on lap 18. I actually missed my initial pit window. It was meant to be 2 laps ago, but for me, I actually just drove on and completely forgot I needed a pit. The next lap, Hamilton pitted, so I had to come in the lap after. So we're on the hard tyres now, and the biggest problem that I've now got in this Grand Prix is not necessarily where we are in terms of position. It's actually how much fuel we've got left. I was noticing this through the race. We were suffering for the first time this season with significant fuel loss, and I mean a lot of fuel loss. I filled the car up with half a lap of fuel extra than what you would need, obviously, to finish the race. But for some reason, you can see it in the bottom right there where my gears and throttle is. You can see the fuel warning light is on. It's currently red at the moment. And we've got a red warning here for Carlos Sainz, who, well, quite frankly, just absolutely breezed past us in a straight line there. Building a high downforce package for this car has meant that a lot of other cars are a lot slippier in a straight line than we are. But we are still howling the back of Carlos Sainz, and we might just try and go for a move here. Again, the back end steps out from Carlos Sainz, and now with the DRS wide open here down the straight, we could try and go for a move here into the braking zone of the chicane, and that is, instead of going around the outside, how you do it if you want to go down the inside into that chicane. But now all of a sudden we're going in towards the banking corner, and I've kind of shot myself in the foot here a little bit, because all of a sudden now, as we go on to the start finish straight here, I've got the Porsche now with DRS on me down the long back straight here. This is not really where I should have made the overtake stick, and now all of a sudden we've got Norris that's trying to potentially have a look now into turn 1. Contact made with myself for Norris. Front wing damage has just been caused there. Who by though? Was it Norris that's got damage? Have I got damage to my front wing? It's Norris that's got damage to his front wing in this Dutch Grand Prix. We're going to go around the outside of him into turn 3, but he won't give it up though, despite having that damage to his front wing here, as we make our way super close now between the pair of us now in towards the middle sector here. Eventually though, we'll get in front of Lando Norris, and Norris, with no part of his front wing, is going to be in a lot of trouble, and we're on board with him right now. As you can see here, down in towards the first corner, the move was just never on. It was very ambitious from Lando there to try and go for it, but he did there, and by tagging me, he then went into me again to break his front wing there. On board with Sergio Perez and George Russell now in this Grand Prix. Perez with no DRS, Russell with some DRS here, down the inside into turn 1. Jaguar looking a little bit reformed heading into this Dutch Grand Prix. Same too, you could be said actually about Red Bull, but Perez is the man that's been dropping down the order. Sergio has had a very good start to this Grand Prix, but he's definitely fallen away in this race, whereas his teammate Van Dorn still runs in second place. He hasn't been overtaking yet, as we look on board here with Nick de Vries now going down the inside here of Colton Herta now in the Aston Martin as they go round in towards turn 1 though. I don't think there is a clean move there for the BMW to pass, but whenever you fail once, try and try again. So here we go then into turn 1 with Nick de Vries trying to attack Colton Herta. Around the outside he goes into the first corner. The Callum Ilott there just waiting in the wings as there's a battle going on further back there. I think actually Mason Wood is trying to find his way past one of the Audis there, so that'd be interesting if he make that one stick, but he doesn't. So we're back on board here with Sergio Perez, who's under pressure from George Russell, who's under pressure from Reese in the Porsche, who's now going around the outside into turn 1 here. Who's going to come out on top? Oh, there was a big back end slide there from Russell as he tried to get on the power there. Really struggled through there, but a bit where it's due to Reese though, because he's currently battling in the points at the moment. And of course, we remember he started right at the back as de Vries then goes for another attack here on Theo Pourchaire. These two having a little bit of a scrap and a bit of a rivalry. BMW and Aston Martin through in towards the first corner, now towards turns 2 and 3. Will Nick de Vries finally get the move? No, he doesn't. He actually goes a little bit wide there into the hairpin of turn 3. That's given Ilott a golden opportunity now to read or to pass him and nick the position now as they make their way through in towards the middle sector. Who's going to come out on top in this? Ilott's going to have the outside line. De Vries got the inside line. De Vries holding on in there. Ilott swoops around the outside, and it's Callum Ilott that capitalizes on the mistake by Nick de Vries as we go on board here with Reese now, who got past George Russell at some point, and the two of them, him and Sergio Perez, completely dropped Russell now from this Grand Prix, and Reese now back end sliding a lot there through the exit of turn 1 as he tries to overtake Sergio and get himself higher up in the points. I believe this is the battle for P8, if I'm correct in saying. I could be wrong on that one though. Lap 33 here to start. Lap 34 though, we've got DRS again. We are now with Reese, who's got quicker straight line speed than the Red Bull. Down in towards turn 1. It's a lovely move from Reese. Perez brakes super late to try and swoop around the outside. Can't get the rotation in the front of the car to make that one stick. Reese is in front of Sergio Perez in the Dutch Grand Prix. And lap 35 of the race here. We're now very much in a world of our own here. And we're just lifting and coasting and we are cruising. Like, I'm genuinely, at this stage of the race, we've got a yellow flag behind us though, for one of the drivers. It's Piastri that's out of this Grand Prix. Oscar Piastri, this engine has failed, and there goes Pato O'Ward, there goes Daniel Ricciardo to make their way through, and Reese and Perez will make their way through, and so too does George Russell. But it is Lewis Hamilton, our teammate, that has just won the Dutch Grand Prix. Stoffel Van Dorn has had an absolutely mega drive for Red Bull and has come home in second place. Carlos Sainz is coming home in third. We cross the line to finish in P4 after starting in P10. But all in all, it's a super frustrating weekend, really, in general. And it bodes down to, I guess, partly ourselves and partly an issue with the car. So, I mean, in qualifying, we crashed, so we gave ourselves the 5-place grid penalty, and then I was never able to get myself a banker lap time, so I only had one run at it, and P5 was still a decent result. But in the race was really frustrating for me, because for about the last half of the Grand, I'd say from even just before the pit stops, when I made that dive bomb on Carlos Sainz, just before we stopped for the hard tyres, that was actually a lift and coast dive bomb, in which I lifted off the throttle and just sent the car in. Throughout the entirety of that Grand Prix, I was lifting and coasting so much. I actually finished with minus 0.3 of fuel. And I started the race with 0.5, so it meant overall I lost 0.8 worth of fuel. But I had to lift and coast so much, I was not even pushing at maybe even 30%. For a lot of the race, because I was having to do that much. So it was really annoying, because I felt like if I genuinely was able to just push flat out 100%, I probably could have been in the mix with Van Dorn and Hamilton. But it is what it is. Hopefully the team can find out what happened. But at least the team can still celebrate with a victory for Lewis Hamilton, who wins the Dutch Grand Prix, taking his second win of the season. And Van Dorn, like I said, the guy starts on the front row of the grid and doesn't put a foot wrong and puts Red Bull in a very strong position. And they had a great race. And Van Dorn, I think he also did a one-stopper, but did it with soft tyres rather than using the medium. So fair play to him. Carlos Sainz gets back onto the podium. It's been a very difficult 3 races for Sainz with no points at all. This time around, though, it is points for Sainz. He's back on the podium for Porsche, and we come across the line in P4. Charles Leclerc impresses and finishes in P5 for Audi, with Pato O'Ward claiming the sole points for McLaren here today. Daniel Ricciardo finishes in 7th for Renault, with Reese crossing the line in P8. He started, I believe, in P19, and he ended up finishing in P8 on a track which is notoriously difficult to overtake at, so credit where it's due for Reese. Sergio Perez drops down to P9 in the end, with George Russell crossing the line to pick up a point for Jaguar. Lando Norris was the man that set the fast lap of the race for Ferrari with 1 minute 8.812. But when we have a look at the second half of the table, you can see why that is no consolation to them. Theo Porcher finishes in 11th for Aston Martin, with Nick de Vries in P12 for BMW. Valtteri Bottas crosses the line in 13th place for Audi, ahead of Mason Wood, who was 14th for BMW. Colton Herta finishes in 15th for Aston Martin, which does mean that every single time in this race that I've been saying Colton Herta and Nick de Vries are going at it, it was actually Theo Porcher, which just goes to show that I am a primetime David Croft. In P16, it is Gasly for the Renault, ahead of Sam in P17. Sam, I think, might have just been the only driver on the track to do a 2-stop race, and that really wasn't the way to go. Callum Ilott finishes in 18th for Jaguar. And then look at that, it's the 2 Ferraris coming up next. Lando Norris finishing in 19th. He had to pit with front wing damage after collision with us. And Oscar Piastri DNFing from this race. What a shocker for Ferrari. But what does that do to the Drivers' Championship? Well, it closes it up at the top, but also expands out actually in some circumstances as well. We are top of the Drivers' Championship with 117 points. Lewis Hamilton moves to second in the championship, but he is now just 7 points behind me as he has 110 points. Sam is third in the championship despite not scoring here today. He is on 93 points but is now 24 points behind in the Drivers' Championship. Reese is fourth in the championship for Porsche with 78 points. He is 39 points behind me overall. Oscar Piastri is fifth with 55 points. Doesn't make a difference to him where he is in the standings. He stays where he is. Carlos Sainz is sixth in the championship, goes ahead of Lando Norris after his podium here today on 52 points. Lando Norris is still on 47 points but drops to 7th in the championship. Daniel Ricciardo is 8th for Renault on 33 points. Stoffel Vandoorne is 9th in the championship for Red Bull with 25 points to his name. And then Charles Leclerc for Audi moves into the top 10 of the championship with the next Grand Prix being the British Grand Prix. And then looking at the Constructors' Championship and how things have panned out, well, the gap at the top of the Constructors' Championship is extremely large. It's 227 points now for Mercedes-AMG EQ, and they nearly have a 100-point lead over Porsche, their closest challenger. Porsche with 130 points to their name. McLaren have got 109 points so far in this championship. Ferrari have got 102 points. Now, just before I clear up any form of confusion, Ferrari in the previous episodes had 101 points. Here they've got 102 points, but they haven't scored a single point. As per what I tend to do is I always, after 3 rounds, go through the spreadsheet that I have made and recalculate everybody's points, because I don't use a calculator for each team and driver's points. However, when it comes to that, I can make mistakes, and I did in this case, and Ferrari actually had a point more, and I think McLaren had a point less than what they should have had. So yeah, that's why they're on 102 points. If you're wondering why they've got an extra point for not scoring a point, Red Bull are on 55 points. They've given themselves a comfortable little area in the Constructors' Championship. 20 points clear of Renault, who are on 35 points. 10 points clear of both Jaguar and Audi. Now, despite Jaguar picking up points with George Russell, Charles Leclerc, with that impressive P5, allowed them to get a good haul of points and climb up literally level with Jaguar. Aston Martin still have 2 points to their name with BMW with the one at the solitary point. But that is it for the F1 Journey Dutch Grand Prix. Let's get straight into the post-race notebook and see what the teams and drivers had to say after the Dutch Grand Prix. Taking a look at the post-race notebook now for the Dutch Grand Prix, Lewis Hamilton takes his second win of the season to close that gap at the top of the championship to his teammate Tom to just 7 points. Stoffel Vandoorne took a stunning second place at the Dutch Grand Prix for Red Bull, with Carlos Sainz finishing in third place for Porsche. One man that definitely had an awful weekend was Sam in the McLaren. He was caught out by Valtteri Bottas' car being stricken on the circuit, crashing into him and of course forcing him to start in P18 after also Reese was involved in that crash. During the race though, Sam was one of only 2 drivers to make a 2-stop strategy around this track, and that really didn't work out. The other man being Lando Norris, but he was forced to pit due to damage. And he has said that he will be speaking to McLaren internally about the entire strategy plan and trying to come up with a solution as to why this was a potential issue for them and how they can go ahead and basically improve as a team moving forwards, as they seem to be making 1 or 2 mistakes now. Both Tom and Reese were very satisfied with their drives during the Dutch Grand Prix. Reese more so, as of course he had to recover from 19th on the grid to finish in P8, which is a sensational drive for him in the Porsche. However, there was still a little bit of a hollowness from his comeback drive, as of course, if he had managed to get through qualifying without being involved in the skirmish at the start, who knows where he could have been in the Grand Prix itself. And it's still a dent to his Drivers' Championship aspirations, as of course Tom, who also recovered starting P10 on the grid to finish in 4th place, managed to actually gain points on him in the championship. And Christian Horner was full of praise for Stoffel Vandoorne after a sensational podium finish for Vandoorne and a sensational weekend for him. He started second on the grid on the front row, challenged Lewis Hamilton in the early stages of the race and managed to make a one-stop strategy work using the soft tyres at the start instead to come across the line and finish in P2. But that is it for the Dutch Grand Prix. We'll be seeing you guys next time around for the British Grand Prix. So hopefully you ended up enjoying this race though. And if you did, drop it a like, subscribe, and if you are new around here as well, do all of that stuff. And I'll see you guys for the next one. Take care all. Peace.